As artists, we put our work out into the world in many different ways. Oftentimes we do that through digital images of our work. However, taking digital images and editing digital images is often more difficult than making the artwork itself. Hi, I'm Tess Mosko Scherer. I am the Executive Director of the Arizona Art Alliance. I have been a gallerist for 30 years and a professional artist for over 10 years. During that time, I have photographed not only my own work, but other artists' work for marketing purposes. I am here today to give you some of the tips and tricks that I have learned about photographing art through the years. I am not a professional photographer. However, I've done this enough to be able to share with you some of the things that I have learned to help you to present your work the best way that you possibly can. So let's get started. You want to start with the best quality photograph you can create. I take my photographs outside in morning light, which is indirect. You want to identify a spot that has even indirect light. You do not want direct light, as it is too harsh and will cast shadows on your artwork. I use a tabletop easel with indirect light and shoot with my phone. Hold your phone parallel to the surface of your artwork. Check your edges to see that they are square. Tilt your phone to make adjustments. This will reduce the amount of editing you need to do later. Today we are going to look at how to edit a photograph on your phone. I have an Android. The actions, though, are similar on other phones, but this is the one that I have. My photos are stored in the gallery, which has this icon right here. We tap that, and I took a photograph earlier, which is in my downloads. So I'm selecting that photograph. Now, if you look at this photograph, it's pretty bad. The painting is quite nice. It's done by a friend of mine. However, there's background, there's an easel, and the images the image has an odd perspective on the painting itself. So this is not a usable photograph to submit for a show. However, it's salvageable. So what we will do is use this editing tool that's at the bottom. Now these tools sometimes disappear. If you tap the photograph, it disappears. You tap the photograph again, and your toolbox appears along the bottom. The editing tool looks like a little pencil. You tap that tool. Now you have some additional tools that come up that you can select. And if you notice, there's little corner brackets. So those corner brackets are used for cropping. And so you can pull those in a little bit, and we can remove some of the extra data that we don't need right now in the photo. If you look, the line across the top, the edge of the painting, is parallel to the edge of the photograph as well. So we can bring that all the way down and crop that out. It's a good habit is to save every process along the way. So we save that. We come back. We hit our editing tool, and we're going to come up here a little bit more. And now it's time to work on our perspective. We can adjust the horizontal or the vertical perspective. So let's start with the horizontal. If you look at the bottom edge here, oops, there it goes. See how that changes? So we now have a parallel line along the bottom. So let's say done, and we can pull this up and crop that. Save. Now we have to work on our sides. Click that again. That looks pretty good. Say done. whenever you crop an image of your artwork, you always lose a little bit of the edge. But this was not a dramatic loss, and that's pretty typical for editing a photograph. Now that we have the photograph cropped, we come along here and we go to details. And let's edit the details. Rename. The artist's name is Waylon. Call this 1. We will save. Okay, so now that we have cropped our photograph and we have saved our photograph, we need to resize our photograph. So we are in the editing tool. We have our corner boxes, which indicates we are in the editing mode. And at the very bottom, there's these 3 dots. Click on those 3 dots and it says resize. So we can keep it at the original size, and then we can look at the different percentage that we might want to reduce the image size, or we can look at the pixel size. So when you're entering a show, they might say submit your images at 1,000 pixel on the longest side. So now you have to see what is the closest to that 1,000 pixels on the longest side and make that selection. Sometimes they'll say it's 2,000 pixels or 5,000 pixels, whatever the number might be. So I am going to live on the edge and select this 40%. It's a little larger than 1,000 pixels on the longest side, but it's 1,000 on the shortest side. It might be able to go through. Let's say done and save. And now I'm going to try an experiment. Resize. So now we can go to 80% of that size, which is 1,052 on the longest side. And that will get you right to where you need to be to submit your piece of artwork. You say save. It's necessary to resize your piece of artwork because when you're submitting artwork to a show, the show coordinator has to deal with a lot of images. And so they've asked for images at a specific size so that they're images that they can deal with either through the presentation of how they submit it to their jurors for selection, or how they're posting it to a website, or creating a PowerPoint, or whatever it is, however it is, whatever their process is for making that selection for the jurors, as well as posting it either on their website or online. So resizing your images is an important part of this process. Oftentimes when you submit work to a show and you're doing it through a online form, if the image is too large, the image does not go through. And so you need to know how to resize it for that purpose. I am always asked, how do I get my photographs from my phone to my computer? I use Google Drive and Google Photos. So I have the icon for Google Photos on my phone. I click that and I click, see how this little icon is actually moving there? If I click that little picture of myself, it says backing up and backup complete. So you have photographs on your phone and you say,
no, you're not showing those.
how do I get my pictures from my phone to my computer? So my husband was a great sport today, taking pictures with me so I can show you photographs taken from today. So there's a few different ways you can do that. So when you go here, when you get to your home screen, I click on Photos. I use Google Photos, and I click on this little icon of myself, and it tells me that my backup is complete. However, if my backup was not complete, you would hit your little icon, and it would spin, and it would show you that it was backing up. However, Maybe you only have to share 1 or 2 photographs that you want to get from your camera to your computer. It might be easier to just say, here's this photograph, and I'm going to share it with myself. So you click on this little share icon at the bottom, and then you decide if you want to send it as a message or a mail. And so I am going to message it to my husband so that he can see his funny picture. Or I can send it in an email to myself. Additionally, you could hardwire your camera connected to your laptop or your computer and send your images that way, but it's so easy to do it without having to hardwire it that that's my personal preference. However you choose to do it is up to you.
So we are going to work on editing a photo in GIMP. GIMP is a free software application that you can download onto any computer or I think even your cell phone. It can be complicated to use. I'm sure it looks a little bit daunting on the screen, but for our purposes, it's really quite simple. So again, we have this image that is a beautiful piece of artwork, but not a photograph that you can submit to a juror. So we need to remove or straighten the sides of this painting, change the perspective of it so that it's nice and square. So the first thing we will do is create grid lines. So if you take your grid line and you're matching it up to your bottom left-hand corner there, now you have a guide. You know where to straighten your image. And then we do the same thing on the right-hand side so that you have a guide for yourself. The image is fairly straight left, top and bottom, so we don't really need to do that for this. Then we come up here to the toolbox and we select the transformation tools and we select perspective tool. Then we take and we can drag the corner on the left and then the corner on the right so that the image is straightened, and I have to sometimes go back and tweak each edge. And we're going to do this side just a little bit to remove that edge of the easel. Once you're satisfied with what you've done, everything is tweaked and looks good, you click on transform and you're done. So now we need to crop. So we go back to our tools, we go to our transformation tool and we go to crop. And then we use the crop tool, working with our grid lines that we created for ourselves. And then we come back here, transform, crop, and you're done. So now we need to resize it based on whatever the juror's requirements might be. So you go to image, scale image, and let's pretend that the jurors want a 1200 pixel on the longest side. So we come over here and we type in 12, oops, 1200, and then we click on the height so that the image is uniform. And we've kept our resolution at 300, and then we click here, scale. The last thing we need to do is save it. So we go to File, Export As, and we're going to say resized. And then we get our export dialog box. We rename it, whatever you want to name it. Usually it's going to be artist name and title, and then come down here, we select our file type. I missed it, a little JPEG. Here we go. And then we say export. And we want just say export. There we go. And we're done.